This week in VR, we are joined by Richie, the creator of Richie's Plank Experience, but he is talking about his brand new game, Max Mustard, which comes out next week. This is a platformer. We get into why platformers work so well in VR. Also, we've got Walkabout Ice Lair. We've had a week with it now, so we go into our thoughts of how we thought about the actual course. Samson plays Contractors Showdown as well, and then we have Walkabout Standings Part 2. We have lots to cover into this episode, so let's talk Oculus. Let's Talk Oculus, a VR podcast, is proudly sponsored by the good folks at Patreon. If you want to support the show, join us on patreon.com/Let's Talk Oculus. What's up, Oculus nerds? Welcome back to Let's Talk Oculus, episode 128. I'm your host, as always, Dan from Playtest VR, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always. It is Samson. How are things doing, Samson? What is happening in the world for you?
There's so much going on. It's freezing cold, but luckily I got my little cities, little hoodie here. Lots to talk about. I got in an App Lab game finally.
Whoa!
And Dan, did you hear?
What's that?
That Daft Punk came to Beat Saber?
They did. Yeah, they did. Oh, you're going to talk about that? I am interested. Before we get into all of that, this is a hybrid show, as some of you know and love. We've got Richie you'll know him from Richie's Plank Experience. He's on in the second half of the show talking about the new game Max Mustard, which is out next week. Obviously, we'll talk about Max Mustard in second part, and we'll probably get into it a bit more next week as well. But without further ado, Samson, let's get into the Walkabout tournament, week 2. Week 2.
No more ado.
No more ado. And before we get into it, just so everyone's aware, and I'm sure most of you already know this by now, but Walkabout Tournament, this is the weekly tournament that we do. It's going to be 5 weeks long. This is week 2. Samson will toss out 2 courses on Monday or Sunday, normally at the beginning of the week. And then you have till Sunday. What is the time, Samson?
Sunday at noon. I've changed it up because we've been changing our recording times.
Yeah, Sunday at noon Eastern to get your scores in to Samson. He will post 2 courses, an easy and a hard mode. They will either be announced to the pod, but also definitely announced in the Discord chat as well. So definitely come on down to the Discord if you want to be a part of the Walkabout tournament. But without further ado, Samson, give us the facts of week 2.
Come on down. So as usual, I'm going to start with a few broad facts, little quick hitting numbers, and then I'll get into the easy and hard standings. So this week we had 32 hole-in-ones. 6 of them were done by Matt916 on Easy Mist. Kind of crazy.
Wow.
By starting hole 5, he had a score of 4. It's bonkers.
That is bonkers.
We had 238 birdies and 199 pars, and all our scores together were minus 191. The hard course got to us. We were definitely positive on the hard course this time.
And the hard course, sorry, I don't think we mentioned that. We have Mist Easy was the easy course this week, and Seagull Stacks Hard was the hard course. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good.
And that was a tough one. There were a lot of, oh my God, Seagull Stacks Hard is the worst, the hardest.
I didn't even bother doing it. Because I knew I didn't want to be embarrassed. I'm kidding. I just didn't have the time. But yeah, this Seagull Stacks Hard is one of the hardest ones for me. For some reason, I could just never get it right with some of those hills, and especially, 18th hole really sums it up, where I'm always dropping down I dropped all the time. So yeah, that's a hard course for sure. So I'm impressed with the numbers on there. We'll get into the standings in a moment, but I'm impressed with those stats for sure.
The one that got me, it's pretty early on in the course, but it's where you have to go between the rocks up the hill.
Yep.
And what I did, I learned a little shortcut where if you go towards the hole side, there's a little curve and you can hit it against the curved wall and it'll hop up. But I messed that up a few times. So.
Oh. Little hidden trick. What can you remember what hole it was, or was it just the one that goes? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I can give you the number because I remember what my score was on it.
Fair enough.
And my score was a 7. So that was hole 3.
Hole 3. Wow. Early on.
Very early on. Yeah, early on, I knew I was out.
Fair.
All right. And that sums up all of our more general. And now we'll get into let's get into it. And Dan, one more time, things are looking awfully familiar at the top of the board here.
Go on.
So we're going to celebrate by going over the easy course first, okay?
Yeah.
Dan, this time I'm doing a top 5 because all these people, they truly do have impressive scores and they clearly work it harder to make it better. So we're just going to do that. In 5th place, easy course, missed easy. In 5th place, we have the maestro himself with a balmy -17. In 4th place, we have a tie between Rocking Horse Brat and Guido at -19. Now, the big 3. When it comes down to them and Walkabout, the work is never over. In 3rd place, we have Parody for Life with -21. In 2nd place, we have Destiny 11 with -25. And in 1st place, figurative drumroll please, with -27, we have Matt 916. And may he celebrate and dance so free, because that is incredible.
I love it. Incredible. I mean, there was no surprise after you said the fact of those hole-in-ones that Matt 916 put together. But it's funny when you mentioned the maestro. I thought you were saying the maestro, and then proceeded with the name. You just didn't say anything. And I looked at the scoreboard. I was like, oh no, it's just his name. It's the maestro.
Yes. He prefers to be called the maestro.
That's fair enough. Impressive scores all around from Mist. Mist is there's a few holes even on easy that can trip you up. Can definitely trip you up, especially with the 3rd hole, which you're obviously going round the outside of the labyrinth. That could easily trip you up if you got to play cautious on that hole. Like I would say
around.
Yeah,
around
that goes
world?
around. Yeah, that goes around. And then there's obviously the one that goes uphill as well once you're in the village and such. Like you can play safe and you'll probably hit a respectable score. Don't get me wrong, but if you're hitting like -27, -25, -21, like the top 3 are, I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing something special with some of those holes. They're definitely going for it, and it's paying off.
And he's actually offered in our Discord to help you, or the you plural here. So come on down and get some help on from Matt 916 on teach you all the hole-in-ones because he knows them all. It seems.
Very impressive. Very impressive. How did you fare on this one? You had a -12 here.
Dan, I'm not sure what I did. Is that what I did?
Yeah,
That's what I did. Yeah, -12. It was so long ago. I did it Monday. Like I did it the morning after we recorded with Gilman, and we just crushed right through it. It's
fair enough.
Quick discussion. I got to go to work, so.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, Samson. Let's move on to Seagull Stacks Hard. What do we have?
Seagull Stacks Hard. No ties in this one. Just a straight up top 5 here. So in 5th place we have Cobalt Dave with -6. Nice. In 4th place, we have Rockin' Horse Brat with -7. The top 3, they might look awfully familiar. We have in 3rd place, Parody for Life at -10. In 2nd place, we have Destiny 11 with -13. And in 1st place, we have Matt 916 with a -17, who must have just stayed up all night to get lucky to get that ridiculous score.
I absolutely love it. Just incredible. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I look at the scoreboard, and obviously you, Samson, you got a -3. Spry Guy got a -5, and then all the other scores that you just mentioned. And I think anything under par on Seagull Stacks Hard is an achievement, to be honest.
Yo, I was really happy with my score. As previously mentioned, I blew up hole 3 with a 7.
Hmm.
But after that, I birdied a few. I was able to mostly stay par and birdie and work my way back from that +3 early on.
Yeah, incredible. I see also with Seagull Stacks Hard, we had 2 hole-in-ones with Matt 916 on 5 and Sanderman uh, at 5 as well. Sorry, on the whole 5 as well. Yeah, you have not color coded it on our script as much as you
Yeah.
did last time, so it's a bit harder to see. But no, that would have taken you ages. But yeah, 2 hole-in-ones on hole 5, which is very impressive. But to be fair, a lot of people did get 2s on that one too. So I don't remember hole 5, but
I do have the stats better, like easier to read on my Excel sheet as well, so I
oh
can
yeah,
see like
special
I have all the
service.
hole in ones.
You got
Yeah,
your own script going on over there.
yeah, right.
That's fair enough. But no, fantastic scores all around. Impressive. Samson, round us out here. What do we have for week 3?
Allow me to round us out. Next week's courses are Arizona Modern Easy. I want to see some hole in ones on 18. I do want to see some. And doing the new one, Dan, Ice Lair Hard. It
No
will be
way.
the great equalizer.
Oh my god. I mean, we'll talk about Ice Lair in depth a little later on in the show, but that's a hard course. Especially because it's so fresh, so you got to get used to the mechanics and such. And like I said, we'll talk about it later, but when I was playing Walkabout Ice Lair, I was like, I hope, because I knew you were gonna do Ice Lair, but I was like, I hope he chooses the easy at least, because the hard feels like it's unfair right now.
So this is what happened. I knew we haven't done either of the Arizona Modern courses, and I knew I wanted an Ice Lair, so I had to decide which, and it really came down to I didn't want to do Arizona Modern Hard.
That's fair enough. That's hard in itself. That's fair enough. Wow. Well, there we have it. Obviously, like I said, go onto the Discord if you want to be a part of it. It is free to play. Absolutely free. It's free to join the Discord. If you didn't know already, you can just join in our little description. There's a Discord link right there. But if you do want to send us $1 and want to support the show, you can feel free to do, and then go over to our Patreon and drop I guess it's $1.50 on my end because it's Canadian, but
Monopoly money over there.
Yeah.
But by the way, Dan, that was an incredible transition.
2.
Well, you transitioned right from Walkabout into the Patreon.
I did, yeah. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah. It was very good. I didn't
It's
even realize
less cool now that you didn't realize it. Yeah, but that was impressive.
I didn't even realize it.
You're just a natural, dude.
It's like I've done this for so long now. We're 128 episodes in. It's not even on the script to talk about it, but we fair enough. Anyway, it's like when when it's a segue and it's just, it's when you always announce afterwards because you're so proud of it. But I obviously just flew over my head that I was making it. So I don't know if that's worse. But anyway, so let's get into our what we've been playing. Samson, I know you've been playing a lot. I'm just going to start off really quickly because the 2 games, I mean, Walkabout Ice Lair is what I've been playing, and we'll talk about that after you go through your list. But Max Mustard is a game that we've both been playing as well, and I just want to preface that we don't want to talk about it too much right now because we're going to get into it in the second part for sure. But what we will say about it is that Max Mustard is a really great game, really great platformer. If you're in the platformer mood, this is fantastic, and I'd highly recommend you pick it up next week. And I mean, Samson, you completely destroyed it and finished the game, as you were saying, part 2, which is amazing. Did you know how long it took you to finish the game? Do you know how long this game took?
I finished the story in about 5 or 6 hours, but I didn't do all the levels. You just need to get each level. You collect 3 things, and to get to take on each boss, you need a certain number. And I accrued enough where I could skip a couple levels, and I really wanted to get to that fun to roll credits. I will definitely be finishing more of it.
Yeah,
and I think I'll probably pick up the Steam version eventually when that comes out because I did get this game from them early.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And I mean, the good thing about it sounds very much like a standard Mario platformer where there's different paths that you could take, and it depends on how many stars you have to obviously, like you
Exactly.
said, beat the boss. So it's kind of a similar thing where you don't have to 100% it to finish the game. You can like do probably 70%, and there's still some extra if you want to jump in, which is amazing. But yeah, Max Mustard's fantastic. Stay tuned for obviously part 2 where we get into that. But Samson, what else have you been playing? Because you said a bit of Daft Punk and such, so I'm very intrigued. So the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Yes. So first, I'm going to start with some Grid Legends, Dan, because there's a few things I wrote down this week that I've been meaning to mention. Don't have downloads going in the background while you're playing this game because you will drop frames.
Really?
100%.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
There are a few times I'd be in a race and then everything just stops for like a real long frame second. And eventually I put it together that it was because I had games updating.
That's interesting.
Whenever the update like finished,
Yeah.
it would like ping you to tell you, and like that spat system background would. Yeah.
That's interesting. I've never seen that before in any other game. This must like push every resource possible to make it run as well as it can with the visuals and such. But yeah, fair enough.
And I'm doing well. I think I have 2 more sections in Rookie to finish still, but one of them I think I'm just going to have to skip because one of them involves drifting, and I can't do it. You when you were a kid growing up, did you ever have to have like a friend come over and finish a level for you?
Sometimes, yeah. Spider-Man 2 and such. I remember games like that. Yeah, for sure.
This is how I feel about drifting in Grid Legends. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Dan, I'm not even like close to, I'm in last place by a significant margin.
Wow.
And I do not know.
You just don't know how to.
I just suck.
Is it okay? So you know how to like drift. You know, like
I understand the idea and the concept,
yeah.
and I understand how to make my score go, but I don't know how to make I don't know how to make my score go big well, and I can't execute anyway. So that's
fair enough.
We'll see how far I can get into the game, skipping all the drift levels.
Exactly.
That's my new goal.
Might be a chunk of it.
Breachers got into Breachers Friday night again with the gang. Had a blast of a time. There were some great plays of the night, but I didn't have any of them, so we're going to move on.
Moving on.
Yeah. World. I got into World with 3 O's. If you're looking for it in the store, it's free. I got in with Paul Gilman. We had some good times. I think we ended up in the DR one time. Yeah, we did some exploring. And Spain. Definitely some Spain. I guessed Italy, though. I was wrong.
Close enough. Close-ish.
Vaguely
Big-ish.
area. Yeah, Europe.
Synth
Riders. I'm still on my Synth Riders grind, mostly at work. But speaking of Synth Riders, I love me some rhythm games, and that Daft Punk Beat Saber DLC is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, before you get into it, I can see on the script you put under Grid Legends, can't drift, racers getting harder, better, faster, stronger. Daft Punk is deep into your head right there.
Yes.
With that. So yeah, tell us about the Daft Punk DLC. What's it like? What's it like? How's the visuals for it to start off with, maybe?
Love the visuals. It's got 2 big heads,
Yeah.
Daft Punk, if you will. In sometimes the lyrics go on their little face mask. So what I did was I turned off the score, and now I just play immersive mode, and it's way more immersive. Go figure. But it makes the visuals I feel like pop even more. I don't see a number, that I care about there. Some of the songs are pretty long, and I think that it might be cheaper to get licensing for songs that are a combo of songs you already have licenses for, because there's like the Around the World One More Time like live combo track, and then there's Around the World and One More Time.
So I see.
You're listening to a lot of the same tracks here.
Yeah.
In varying styles at times. But I love it. I love all of them. So I'm just going to keep playing them. There's a 10-minute track that is a slog.
Do
But I
you
love
remember?
it.
Do you remember what it is?
Absolutely not.
Fair enough. I'll see if I can get the track list up here. You've got Around the World, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, Daft Punk, Get Lucky, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger again, like you mentioned, Lose Yourself to Dance, One More Time, Technologic, sorry, and then The Prime Time of Your Life / Brainwasher /
That's
Rollin / Alive, live from 2007, and then Verdis Quo, if I've got those names right. But yeah, it must be that one which has like 4 songs mashed into one. That makes sense.
That's it.
Fair enough.
I played it hard and then I played it on expert, and I feel like both times around the 2-minute mark, I was like, Jesus, like what have I got? Why did I sign up for this? And then the last 8 minutes go by pretty quickly. So
yeah, fair enough. Are you a big Daft Punk fan beforehand? Was this, you've always been in? Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are, to be honest. There's not many people, even if you don't really like that electronic or dance music, like this, the songs have been so catchy and across commercials and all that stuff. Like I feel like a lot of people are big Daft Punk fans, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a really big fan of Random Access Memories, real big fan of Discovery, real big fan of Alive 2007.
Yeah.
And then the Human After All, Homework, I think I'm less into.
Fair enough.
The Television Rules, that's a pretty good one. But anyway, I digress. That's Daft Punk. Great. Yeah. If you're into Daft Punk and you like rhythm games, you're going to love it. If you're not into EDM, beat this type of music, you're not going to like it.
Yeah,
no surprise there.
Makes sense.
It's gotten me back into Beat Saber though, for sure. I started on hard and now I've worked my way up to expert. And when I did hard, I like to speed it up just a little bit. That a little bit of a challenge. But Dan, I've tried Expert Plus 2 or 3 times. No, I'm not there.
That thing's ridiculous. I remember just being in there and I'm like, I don't understand. Even if I watch someone on YouTube doing Expert Plus, I don't understand. I'm like, your reaction times must be amazing.
Well, here's the thing. I'm sort of relearning. So in like Synth Riders, there's certain movements that you just know they're so normal. That's like when you hit notes in certain spots, your arm's always going to move in the same way if it's mapped properly.
Yeah.
And Beat Saber has a very similar thing. Like if you hit if you go down, you got to come back up, right? I noticed myself not even really looking at the arrows too much and just going with it.
It just made sense. That's good. Good beat mapping, then, isn't it? Right, where it just all makes sense that the next movements are all gonna, it all makes sense when you're going through the level. Yeah, exactly. So very good, very good. I don't know if maybe I'm in the mood for some Daft Punk. Maybe one day. But yeah.
Are there any free tracks? I don't know. Probably not.
They don't normally do free tracks. They do the free, sometimes free DLCs with like some generic tracks, but like they won't do a DLC like Daft Punk with like half of it like Synth Riders would do.
They do OSTs.
Yeah, for sure. Right. What else we got going on?
A little bit of cubism. Did one more puzzle. Whew, they're slow going. This game is a grind for me, but I'll get there. And then just some App Lab.
Yeah. What you got going on App Lab?
All right, I played a little bit of Home Run Derby, but I want to talk about that later because I want to play a little bit more. Honestly, I thought I would play more, so I put it in the script, but then I didn't end up. I
played a bit of Home Run Derby. I played a bit of Home Run Derby, and I didn't. It felt very it felt very unpolished to me.
It felt like a Wii game, kind of, but I feel like there's been 2 updates since I hopped in, so I'm curious. I gotta give it more time.
Yeah. Let's talk about that next week then. Yeah, for sure. I'll do that. So I'd love to check it out again as well. But yeah, what's your App Lab pick of the week?
Yes, I've talked about this one early on in the pod, and I bring it up here and there. But I got into Car Parking Simulator, which it's a game that reminds me, if you've ever played. It's a physical game that's got a grid and you got to get a brick out or a car out, right? That's it's not exactly like that, but you're starting a parking lot. You got to move your car into whichever spot is glowing without hitting other cars. And it uses motion control. You got to turn the car on. You have to change gears. You can open your window, change your radio stations, and you just gotta park. I finally unlocked the SUV, so I've done all the first car puzzles. I started the SUV puzzles, and when you unlock SUV, it unlocks a city driving mode as well, which is underwhelming.
That's fine.
But it is a city, technically, that you can drive around, and you can, I think, kind of take missions. I did one where I had to drive to the library, I believe. I got lucky. I didn't really know where the library was, so I took a guess, and I guessed correctly.
I thought it would be just it just puts you in different parking situations, and it's just like level based rather than, it sounds about a little bit open worldy ish.
Yeah, it's more of a tiny open world where you have to drive to the place and then park.
Right. So
while not there's traffic, you got to avoid the traffic then.
So are you telling me in your day job when you're driving around, you're parked in your car, you'll put your VR headset on, and then you'll do the exact same thing?
So I did try this in the car, but I couldn't because you have to use motion controls. So I kept bumping my wheel while trying to actually turn the not real wheel, if you will.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So yeah, car parking simulator in your car. I guess you got it feels like you're getting the full immersion by doing it within your car and such. So.
It's a fun little puzzle game. It's seated, if that wasn't obvious. Although I guess you could play standing if you wanted to really, really play unimmersed.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty basic. It's nice. The menus are all touch. I love a good UI like that. And I wish I had a price. Dan, talk. Let me get a price.
I mean, as you're pointing out the price, we're moving on to the next topic, and that's Walkabout Ice Lair, the Walkabout mini golf newest DLC. Let's get into that before we get into obviously part 2 and our interview. Now, this obviously came out last week, but we wanted to hold off so everyone kind of gets a chance to play it. And this course introduces a wild new mechanic. I don't know if wild is the correct terminology, but it's
chilly.
It's chilly. It's so different to a lot of what we've seen before with this mechanic. But we'll get into this in a second. Do you have the price before?
The Meta Store is just giving me a little. It's like it's loading, and it's not frustrating, Dan. It's not frustrating.
That's okay. Okay, so let's talk about the Walkabout Ice Lair. When it comes to this game, in terms of impressions, it's about $12 US. It's about $12.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go. Walkabout Ice Lair. So tell me, Samson, when you first went in there, what was your initial impressions?
Whoa.
More of like a reenactment of
yeah, exactly. So you start on top of this lair, and as soon as you hit it in that first hole, the lair opens, and I was like, "Holy smokes, man!" Every single time they just build and build and build, and there's just the sounds, the thing moving. Then you walk onto the elevator that goes down. It's just incredible how everything builds on itself. All the things they've added, all the mechanical things going on, how it's visually stunning. Whew, what were your thoughts?
I had the same kind of feeling because I had no idea at the start. Obviously, you had a bit of ice there, but I didn't go into the ice. It was, for easy, the ice is quite well away, so you're not really going to do it. So I was like, okay. I remember doing Laser Lair. I intentionally hit the lasers thinking that, I'm never going to have this again. And then it happened so many times. I was like, this time,
I had that same thought.
I'm just going to avoid the ice, and I'm sure I'm going to hit it sometime soon.
Yeah.
And the way it opens and then you go in and it kind of gives you that little elevator that brings you down into the lair is really cool. And then I noticed the first penguin just at the background there. That will obviously,
Penguin?
was it not penguins?
No, they're puffins.
Okay, I thought they were penguins, but they're obviously not. Now I feel
Okay.
embarrassed. Okay,
I thought they were penguins. I was expecting penguins, and then
maybe
I
that's
saw
why.
them, and I was like,
Maybe that's why I was expecting penguins because of the ice and such. So I automatically just thought, oh yeah, these are penguins. But yeah, let's talk about visually first. The visually, I thought it was really cool. I really like how there's a overarching story in this one where you've got the the evil puffins, I guess, not penguins, are trying to like induce the opposite of climate change in terms of the heat to the earth, but also to the opposite of like covering the earth with snow so they can explore around and have their own way and such. And I like that there's
really,
like a
you
that's
really
what
got into the story.
yeah, I did. Yeah, I was looking around and such, and there was was it not called climate change? I think it was called climate cool or something like that. Was a big poster there, and they had like a map of flags on in the like the map of the world, for example, and on the board behind it, it was showing all the stuff that they wanted to do, like have a permanent
What was
snow
around
day.
the world?
It was just like a flat map, basically, and then there was flags around like where they're going to dominate and where they're going to have all these activities. And there was like ice cream that they want to do, and there's this permanent snow day and all that stuff. And I really like the the overarching story, and it really adds to it visually because there's a lot going on in here. You know, I always felt with Laser Lair, obviously in hard mode you had a bit more of a story because you had like a science fair going on, but the easy mode there wasn't really a story, but you were just like in this random lair kind of thing, and then you have a robot and it obviously shoots a laser, but there's not much to it in terms of story wise, where this one, you know, you finish it and then the laser malfunctions in the easy mode and such, and then obviously in the hard mode it actually initializes. And I just love that story arc because then you want to kind of explore around and see all the time for like visual elements and see these posters and such, and because it all adds to it. So I think visually and what they've done with the story, I think it's really cool. And it fits in with the laser lair, like the evil lair theme really well. Like they got the similar kind of music in there. It was fantastic, and I do think that this is a little bit improved over the Laser Lair too, but we can talk about that.
Built on it, yeah.
I'll talk about that a bit more.
I got to play with the music on. I just realized.
Yeah, you never do, do you?
I forgot to turn it on. Yeah.
It's pretty much the same. I want to say there's a slight difference, but I don't know if that's the music or the sounds that's causing me. I can't remember.
I will say the sound effects are much louder in this one. I turned those down.
You noticed that? Okay, fair. Yeah, I didn't notice that, to be honest.
No, I noticed
it. You got the sound effects on, but like
yelling.
Those puffins, those penguins with puffin-like features. Let's talk about the mechanic in the end of the day. You know, that's the biggest thing here. You've got, so those of you who haven't played it yet, obviously we'll go into spoilers here because we've given you all a week to play it and such, but you have obviously ice around. And first of all, I mean, there's technically two mechanics. Let's start off with the actual putting the ball on the ice. Samson, that ice is slippery.
It's so like slippery. In fact, it's frictionless.
It's frictionless. The ball just runs straight off it, right? And I was anticipating that the whole course will be like this, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be so much of a difficult course because of like everything is so much icier and slippery and everything like that. And I thought we were going to go into the course just like that, but obviously it develops into said ice cube. So what did you think about the ice cube mechanic in there?
That was really cool. It sort of messes with my head, hitting a cube instead of the ball. I'm not gonna lie. I love how it skips over. You can skip over grass, like it's like you're hitting an actual cube on the surface, so it goes all over the place. There were a couple times where I was kind of close to the ice, and I've tried to hit it so it would skip, and it just went straight into the ice, and then on the ice it just goes. but does have friction, eventually stops on the ice. I love it.
Yeah, I like. I think when the ice cube's on the grass, there's a lot of trick shots that you can kind of do because you can. It
Yeah.
feels like you now got a wedge rather than a putter, so you're like you can chip it over distances and such. It's just very difficult to put it in the hole when it's an ice block because it jumps all over the place. So you get it close to the hole and it might just jump next to it and move completely different. So it won't just jump and then land straight in the hole. You don't really know what's going to happen when it lands. In a way, it's like it's kind of like a rugby ball or American football in a way. Like you have no idea when that hits the ground of where it's going to go. But I love the fact that they have like melting pots around the hole, or like in certain holes there's spots, there's different spots where there's melting spots. Now, question, Samson, for you: there are some holes in hard mode, especially where you have the option to technically avoid getting an ice cube, or you could get the ice cube and play it that way. Like, were you more to kind of avoid the ice cube at all times?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
I mean, not at all times, but definitely a lot. There's one where you can avoid it to the sides, and the hole in turning your cube to ice is straight. And I would try to hit it to the side there. But Dan, talking about the melting, because that is another insanely cool visual effect that they have added. Because your ball is a cube, and if you land on the heat lamp, the cube melts away into a puddle that you visually see the puddle, and then the puddle dries up. Yeah. And then you don't see the puddle anymore. It's incredible. There's multiple stages there. Love it.
Yeah, it's not just a simple, it just disappears. The ice cube just disappears. Because that's what you would think, right? Like the ice cube would just disappear and then that's it. But there's more to it than that. It's really,
there's
really
a story to the ice cube. Yeah.
There's a story to the ice cube and such. Yeah, no, I love the mechanics are a little bit interesting because in some ways it could be a bit polarizing in terms of when you're playing. Because it's not really about the difficulty of the holes too much. It's more about how you manage the ice cube to non-ice cube and such on a lot of these holes.
You got to make choices, yeah.
You got to make choices, and with a lot of different courses for Walkabout, you don't really have that. Like it's all about there might be mechanics on the course rather than actual mechanic on the ball. So it does make it is in more of the realm in like Upside Down, for example. It is in that kind of realm of courses where the mechanics are very far away from the actual mini golf in the end of the day. But I don't think that's a terrible thing. Like I think we mentioned this when we did Upside Down. As long as not every single course ends up being like this, where it has a completely new ball mechanic, then it's okay.
Yeah, I think that they'll probably take a step towards more generic-y, normal next DLC.
Yeah, I think so too. What did you think about skeletons? What did you think about the skeleton?
Oh, the skeleton. The skeleton is a snowman. That's freaking funny.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize what you, because I saw on the script you put skeleton's hilarious, and I didn't realize it until right now, where I was like, oh, that was a skeleton. Just like completely snowed and such. I absolutely love it. Anything? Did you find any any of the balls per se? I'm not gonna lie, I could not find a ball.
I did it all. I found the balls and I found the club because I was playing with a friend and he was really late, so
so you just went around. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, talk about the balls. And any in particular that really stood out, or overall just like what about the difficulty maybe in terms of where those balls were?
So I don't know that I have all of them. So I think a couple of them were tough.
Sure.
But I feel like most of them, I fly around and sometimes I fly into the objects to clip through them so that the balls sort of stand out more.
Yeah.
And I feel like using my methods, a lot of the balls I was able to, they weren't too bad. I feel like I'm missing 3 or 4.
My uncle said to me, he messaged me, he said, ball number 14 is the hardest to find, and I found it by accident, is what he said.
That's fun.
And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see any of the balls, but I didn't properly look. I've just been playing the course and I haven't really just gone into practice mode and had a look. What about the putter? How was the putter?
Oh, the putter's pretty nice. I don't really want to talk about it until people like really kind of find it, but I'll say what the vibe it gave me. It gave me the vibe of an ice queen staff.
I love it. I kind of think I know what you're talking about. And what can you remember what you got in your scores, like your like initial score on this course?
Uh, I think I said it to Dave, but I don't really remember off the top of my head. I feel
I
like I got -5. I was minus definitely on the easy one.
Yeah, my uncle got -5 as well. I got -3 on the easy, and I got 14 over on the hard when I did it first time because that
I
hard
was
mode crushed me when it came to the physics.
-3 on the easy and +2 on the hard.
Nice. So same with me as easy and then hard. Yeah, I just went all over the place. I just sometimes it got to the point where I had this cube and I was like, okay, yeah, if I hit it hard enough to the right against this wall, it's going to do it. But it just like pinballed all over the place and just came back to me and such. And I'm like, okay, this is gonna take some time to get used to.
There there is a one on hard course. It's really big and open, and it kind of feels like an ice rink. And I really like that one. I get to it and I just think, wow, these devs knew that you'd want to just wail on this
Yeah.
once and see what happens, and that's exactly what that.
I so that funny one about that one, that ice rink one, I smacked it as hard as I could. It got really close to the hole after one hit, and I missed the putt. And then I put it in. I got it in after the next one, and I got an eagle from that. And I was like, oh man, that could have been a double eagle.
Albatross. Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. But I don't know if I'll ever be able to replicate that again. So I'm like moving into like the walkabout tournament that we're going to do for week 3, and obviously the hard mode is going to be in here. I'm expecting some high scores, to be honest. I know I'm always surprised by the Discord community and how well they do, but because they don't have enough time to, like, they have the week to practice, but there's not enough time to get all of the, fun little, quirks and what, where you'd hit and such, so, maybe we're going to have some normal looking scores across the board. Who's to say?
We'll see. I'm hoping it's the great equalizer.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted just to end on this as well is that I found that the hard mode wasn't that. The hard mode in terms of the course was fantastic. It was like really hard and introduced the ice mechanic to 0 to 100 in terms of the hard mode and such. But I think the only thing that I'd dock on this course, the only thing that I'd like take points off is that the hard course visually wasn't too different to the easy course visually. Even in Laser Lair, you still had something different with obviously the science fair. With this one, it didn't feel like
right because you're inside, so
you're inside, but yeah.
Matter, yeah.
So it didn't really feel too different. The only thing is obviously where you start off outside. So that's the only thing that I'd kind of dock it points, and that's me just doing that on a walkabout scale because their scale is their level is so high right now. I'm looking at little tiny things, but if I was going to say anything, that's the only thing. The visuals on the hard are almost identical. And sometimes the visuals is what excites me when I get into hard. Like I think about the Around the World in 80 Days with the Paris and such. Like that just goes into night, but it just looks so cool in there. And then you got the Atlantis for night mode of how stunning that one is and such. So sometimes I go into hard going, oh, what we're gonna see here, what we're gonna look at. So that was the only disappointment. I say that in air quotes because in the end of the day, it's still a
now
wicked...
You hate it. You told me off air. You're like, this is a freaking worst one.
This game sucks. I hate ice. I'm all about heat.
Dan, I did forget one other game I got into. I think we're done with here with Walkabout, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I got into Contractors Showdown beta this weekend for a few hours. I teamed up with 2 friends. Both were all pretty noobs at the game.
Yeah,
I had a pretty good time. It's a pretty impressive game. I played on Steam, visually very high quality. There's a lot on your chest, and that was kind of hard to get used to. The map thing is a little hard to grab at times, but I think they're tweaking things. A lot of you can get a little pendant to hang from your gun. So, and the physics on that were freaking nuts. I was standing there just playing with a pendant hanging from my gun, like making it spin and all that. I don't know that I killed anybody. You gotta find the sights and such. And let me tell you, Dan, I am not good at iron sights. I need a little red dot there, like my breacher's red dot. And there's chest things, I don't know, vending machines. Yep, that's what they are. That you can buy health or other things. That it's huge. This map is huge. I think 60 right now. I'm thinking of going up to 75. Anyway, game felt great. I enjoyed this in the limited time I've done it a lot more than I enjoyed Ghost of Tabor, in that I think I'll actually play this one again.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, because you weren't a fan of Ghost of Tabor at all, right? You were
not particularly. I tried. I feel like
yeah,
I tried. I'll try again maybe, but
yeah, you definitely did try. That's fair enough. Yeah, I did wanted to go into it, but I actually totally forgot because it's only on the weekend. So maybe I just need to put like some sort of note on my desk or something, like try Contractors on the weekend.
Just get it when it comes out.
Yeah, that's true. Last weekend, this weekend, for anyone interested in the Contractors Showdown, it is free. And if you need to be beta access though, or it's early access code and such, but you can just get that if you just get into their Discord, you can grab it from there.
In their Discord, there was a channel that had beta access, and you just clicked on it. I just clicked on it for Meta and Steam. I have it in both.
Yeah, and if you
didn't mean to hop in on Quest, but I didn't.
If you can't find it, just Google Contractors Showdown access, and then the first link's Discord, and it will take you straight there.
Or Bing, whatever you use out there.
You using Bing? Are you Bing guy?
No. I have wanted to use the one that sort of protects protects you more. It's a dog, maybe. I forget what it is.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I all I remember back in the day when we were like kids, and you do all these like other Google hacks, like you would write Google backwards, and then you've got like a reverse version of Google and such. You know what?
I was thinking of a really old search engine called Dogpile that I did used to use as a kid.
Dogpile,
but
yeah, fair enough. I mean, Dogpile still works.
Maybe it's a duck. A DuckDuckGo. That's it.
DuckDuckGo. Yeah, fair enough. Dogpile.
Yeah, don't use Dogpile. Dogpile is a terrible search engine from the early aughts that I used to use as a child.
Very good, very good. Anyway, that will obviously do for part one. In part two, you will see us with Richie from Toast Interactive, and he will obviously talk about his game Max Mustard, and we get into why VR platformers are just work so well in VR as well. Why platformers work so well in VR, rather, should I say. But yes, we get into that in part two. Samson, take it away for part one. Go for it.
And we get into the coming sequel of Max Mustard, Kyle Ketchup. Don't pass up a once-in-a-lifetime offer. That was a terrible one.
See you in part two.
Hey, we know public lobbies in VR games can be a bit toxic, feel a bit empty at times. That's why we created the Let's Talk Oculus Discord, a friendly community that you can join for multiplayer meetups, general VR chat, the game, and chat about VR, fitness motivation, and there's even a very impressive 3D printing channel. Join over 100 of our community members in the Let's Talk Oculus Discord for free. The link is right in the description.
All right, welcome back to part two, where we are joined by none other than Richie from Toast Interactive. He is the creative director and the co-founder, and you may know him from a previous podcast that we did have last year, where we talked about Richie's plank experience, this is Richie himself, if no one else knew that.
Thanks for having me on your show. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. I'm excited, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So obviously we had you last year and we spoke about Richie's plank experience and all that, which is great. But you've come in with a new game, Max Mustard. This is a completely brand new platformer in VR, completely different to what you had before with the Plank experience. Can you tell the audience a little bit about the game? Like, who is Max Mustard?
Sure. So I'll tell a little story first that's a little bit funny. In Richie's Plank, we often get reviews, and the reviews are 1 star, this isn't even a game. And I'm like, I know, that's why we said it's an experience. It's like, and so to me, Max Mustard is our first game. It's our first proper VR game. It's been 7 years since we've published a game, and this will be our first since Richie's. And that's why it's such a big moment for us. The game is a VR platformer. There's not many of them. You can count them on one of your hands. Yep. In my opinion, in platforming games, there's a lot of them made throughout history. And if you have a look at them, only some break into mainstream. It's like, and if they're not breaking into mainstream, only platforming fans buy them. And so what I'm trying to say is only the best of the best, they have to be so good that they break into mainstream. And so that's why we spent so much time on this, because in our point of view, if it doesn't meet that quality bar, it's a waste of money and time for us to make it, because we won't get our money back if it's only going to be bought by platforming fans. They'll probably enjoy it, but we won't be able to keep making more games. And so a lot of people have questioned, why are you making a platformer? Isn't everyone playing shooting games and first-person shooters? I'm like, yeah, but also every other developer's making shooting games. So we need to do the exact opposite of that. And so that's why, like, nearly 5 years ago, we're like, this is what we're going to do. And there's a bit of a story there. Should I share that story?
Go for it. Yeah, why not?
It's like, so we're at a VR conference in LA, and the expert speaker was explaining about how VR games can't be third person. And I'm like, what? And I'd just finished playing Hellblade, which is like a God of War kind of game, but they added a VR camera, and I'm like, this is freaking amazing. And I'm like, they've proven that third-person games work great. And then on the flight home, I played Mario Odyssey for the first time on the Switch, which is just so good. How good is that game? So and then I was using the right thumbstick to move the camera sometimes. Not all the time, because they have really good camera control, and I'm like, wouldn't it be even better if you could just turn your head to move the camera? Like, you don't even have to think about it. And then, anyway, I just kind of put 2 and 2 together. We were making a list of games that we want to make next, and we gave a VR platformer a lot of good metrics and scores in, do we want to make it, can we make it, and will it make a return on investment? That were the 3 criteria. And it won in our list. And so we made a prototype, felt great. And then we thought we were just going to have 5 of us working on it. And 4 years later, there's now 30 people working on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a growth.
So it's a big moment for us. But it's going to be up to the customer now. So that's why I feel like the pressure's off already, because I've done everything I can. And now it's not up to me anymore. It's not up to us. It's now up to
the consumer.
The consumer. It's their choice. So we have a little bit of confidence due to all the testing. There's been hundreds and hundreds of testers. So we've opened up the doors to our office for the past few years, and every week, multiple people are coming in testing it. And we've recently gone through multiple rounds of testing, and what they're saying is pretty encouraging. So, yeah.
Nice.
There we go.
So we're talking 5 years of development time. The
first year was mostly prototyping, but 4 years of development. Yeah. 4 years. And so when someone asks how big's your team, it's been 5 people at the start, but 30 people now. So I guess you could average that out. Yeah.
So platforming is actually where I got my start in gaming as a kid. Like Crash
Oh, yeah.
Bandicoot was my
Nice.
number one game on my PlayStation, which led to Crash Team Racing, which was also my love of racing. But anyway, what were some of the platformers that really inspired Max Mustard for all of you?
Good question. I remember when Super Mario World came out when I was a kid on the Super Nintendo. I think it's Famicom in other countries, in the US.
That's
maybe?
Famicom in Japan, I think. I think the
Famicom
same
in
Super
Japan.
Nintendo, here in
Super
North
Nintendo.
America.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember they had it playing at the local supermarket because we could never afford. We didn't. It was a while before we could afford the console, so I would just go down to the local supermarket that had it on display, and I would play it there. And I remember just thinking, "Oh my goodness, this is just so good! I love that game." So yeah, I've loved Mario for a while. When I played Odyssey. Kind of picked it up again when Odyssey came out. And then when we started realizing we're going to make a platform, I went and played all the old 3D Marios. So Mario Galaxy as well, and 3D World,
Nice.
3D Land. And so Mario was probably the game that we used as a reference for level design. We took the level design philosophy that Nintendo use for their games, and it's like a Japanese and Chinese poem structure where it's introduction, then playfulness, then mastery, and then surprise. And so every level has 4 sections, and I think a lot of the testers have compared our game to Astrobot, which is good. It's a really beautiful compliment.
Yeah.
I hope people that play don't expect that to get Astrobot successor or anything, because they are still different games. And it's like, I don't want people. There's things in Astrobot that we don't have, and if they go play our game and expect those things, they might be disappointed. So please don't expect Astrobot 2. But there are elements in our game that Astrobot doesn't have as well. So, but in my opinion, our gameplay is more like Mario, like a 3D, and of all the Marios, probably 3D Land, which is underrated because not many people ended up compared to, say, Odyssey. But the level design is 3D, but also mostly linear. So there's a little bit of exploration, but a focus on gameplay rather than open worldness like Mario Odyssey. And I think Mario Galaxy was a little bit like that as well.
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying that, because when I was playing it this morning, in preparation for this podcast, I was like, it reminds me so much of 3D World. So I think 3D World and Land, I think they're the same kind of game, but one's on DS, one's on right. And they've got 3D World on the Switch, and I played that to death last year because it's a game that I've never played before. It's been
so
out
good
for a while. But it's so good. Yeah. The level design is amazing, and I see some of the elements in that are in Max Mustard, or at least the inspiration of it in there. Like especially with like having hidden blocks, for example, you just jump up somewhere and you hit a hidden block and such, and like I've seen this before.
The level designers surprise me still. I'm playing their levels and I'm like, oh, what? I didn't know that was there. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Absolutely. But go on. Yeah.
No, just to mention of the level design, I love how it really does the platforming thing where you're slowly building on, and you're training the player without even realizing that they're being trained. Like, for example, the first time there's a disappearing like block or whatever that you're meant to jump on, it's a non-death scenario, right? So you learn the player's learning, oh, okay, that's how that will react, but without any tutorial, or it's just natural how you would learn it. I love it.
Yeah. The level designers, it's always been level design first. So the poor artists, the poor developers, I'm like, sorry, the level design and the gameplay has priority. And I really, the interview process for our level designers was the most ruthless of any role at the company. Like, because I knew that's what would make it a good game. Yeah, it was pretty difficult, but they didn't know it was difficult. So do you know how some interviews it feels like you've been pitted against each other? We did that, but they didn't know it because, but also because sometimes people, we don't want to have a high pressure, constant situation, which some people thrive under. We need them to thrive without that. So if we told them as a competition and they performed amazingly well because it was a competition, now we're stuck forcing them into a competition environment the whole time. So, and it also sucks. You don't want that kind of stress.
No.
And yeah, so
I think we talked about that actually last time you were on the podcast. How you're not a crunch studio. I really like that.
Yeah, no, it's hard to do, but I think long term it pays off.
For sure.
Yeah, and there is a bit of however, like there's a game design veteran where we're from, Morgan Jaffett, and he wrote a really long Medium post about this a while ago, and it was that no crunch is created equal. And so some companies crunch with no time off, no pay. It's just a default. And some companies, if you crunch, you get paid for it. You get time and lose, so you can now have a long weekend or a week off if you've banked it up. And also optional. So you don't do the crunch if you don't want to. And I think we found a nice balance there. So we're not saying no crunch, but it's because there's no crunches. It's not the same as other crunch though. Yeah.
Fair crunch.
Yeah, that's fair and optional, I think, is reasonable.
That's very fair. Kind of speaking a bit more about the level design. Like I noticed that there's a lot of depth, to the levels. Like you can, if you wanted to, just streamline through a level if you wanted to and start at A to B. But I think it's perfect for like collectible hunters out there who want to get every single coin and every nook and cranny in there. Maybe get the mustard text and try and beat that time, for example. Like there's a lot to do, especially when you get further into the game. There's a lot in those levels that is not just getting from A to B, which I love. There's a lot of depth to it. I guess that was always the intention behind it, was to have more than just some standard platforming.
Yeah, well, yes. And it makes me feel good that you recognize that. Thank you. Probably as well, those levels are similar. Like every level has a completely unique mechanic, and then we throw it away. Like it's gone. It might get a guest appearance once somewhere else, but like there's a level about seesaws, and the whole level is designed around the seesaw mechanic, and then the next level might be about vacuuming fruit while you're in a rowboat going down a water, like a river, and it's like, why do we do that? And it's because when you finish a level, we want the player to be like, I don't have time, but I'll just have a quick look at the next one. It's like if you've been watching a really good TV show and it ends on a cliffhanger and it's like, I can't, I'll just have a quick look. And then, so that's the feeling we wanted to give for that. It cost a fortune because we had to code and art up unique mechanics and quality control, and every level felt like a new game that we had to make. Poor developers.
Normally people do that in you would have a whole world which is just based on this one mechanic, or if you go back to the old days and we go to Sonic days, Sonic always used to have 2 or 3 levels in the same kind of cut from the same cloth, and then they'll move to the next one, then they'll move to the next one. So it's very rare that you just get just one level for a specific theme, and then it moves on to a second. So it looks like you create a lot of work for yourself, but it's very satisfying for the consumer, because they don't really get bored. They're just every time they go in, they're like, okay, I've just had the gun with the plunger, but now I'm getting this gun, which, like you said, sucks up vegetables, and I can use that to like use it for the, what do you call it, the fans?
The fans.
and such,
Yeah,
to
you
like
can
bang them
vacuum
up
the
and such.
fans, and now,
And
now you can control the platforms creatively.
so keep things new and fresh, like very easily. Yeah.
I do feel like you checked off a lot of the platformer boxes, right? Like the hidden boxes, the little sound, collecting the coin sound is like the perfect dopamine hit. There's lava, there's water, there's, some time pressure levels. I loved all the variety and everything. I sat down to just play a little bit so we could talk for this conversation, and I rolled credits.
Whoa.
Yeah.
He destroyed it today.
Entire day.
Samson destroyed it today.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still got to go back in because there were a couple like side. I realized I could get to the final boss. I was like, yeah, I'm doing this.
Yeah, nice. That's great. We're gonna have to get you some more content now.
Yeah, get working on that DLC.
Yeah. I'm curious what upgrades you bought.
What was the? I feel like at first I went with the money because I was like, all right, if I'm getting more money, that'll help long term.
Yep.
And then,
Smart.
oh god, I feel like I got the jump. I forget now what they all were now. Like what
there's a dash attack.
So that was the last one, and then that was the second one I think I got, and then the body slam was the third
slam.
One. So a note about the animators, because I love when you do the body slam, the goggles stay up as like just for a split second, and it's just like a little funny touches that I love.
That's good to hear. Yeah, we're really curious what upgrades people end up getting.
I'm very curious what's in the cheat box, so I still have to accrue a lot of coins to get that one.
What's the cheat box?
I don't know. It just says like cheat box, and it's like 12,000. It's more coins than I have ever accrued.
I think even Richie doesn't know the cheat box.
They might have snuck that in there without me knowing. That's pretty cool. I have a feeling I know what it is. So there is a cheat we coded in the game, and this is the first we've talked about it. We probably won't ever share it, but someone might end up figuring it out. But it's because it's in VR, it's a dance you have to perform, and if you perform the dance, it activates the cheat code.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that box might be another way to get the cheat code.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, there might be like a shortcut or something like that. When you spoke about the animation with the body slam, I don't know if you've played the latest 3D Mario Wonder. I'm not sure if you've played. Yeah, that game. When it comes to animations, that game, I've never seen any better animations in terms of like they're so charming. So for example, once you're like Mario or Luigi, say you go through a pipe, the hat like stays out for a little bit, and then they grab it. They grab the hat as they're already in the pipe and such. And it's those little bits of animation that's just it's so charming to see, and it makes the world like alive as well. So it's great that you put that in, or at least a little bit of that with the body slam.
Thank you.
Yeah, it makes the character more alive, and it feels like you're in this world rather than just watching a 2D screen or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Did you notice that she'd sometimes look at you when she runs past? Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to tone it down because she was like a bit too obsessed with you.
Yo, I'm glad that you said that, because there were a few times I was like, quit looking at me. Come on.
Yeah.
I noticed that too.
One of them is, and like if you wave, she waves back. But we found a bug, and it's in the release version. If she's moving on a moving platform, like there's a Ferris wheel ride at one point and you're in there and you wave there, she doesn't wave back. And I'm like, it's when people are going to probably try to wave for the first time.
Yeah,
And
when
I'm
you're
like,
stationary
no.
on that wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that'll be out in one of the patches, but it's not it's a small detail. It's not a huge deal, I guess.
Of-
Yeah.
That's fun that
And as
you.
in, oh, go ahead.
I was about to say that's just fun that you've thought about all these little interaction bits. It's not, once again, it's not me just playing the game with a third person. There's actually some, I'm following this person all around, and they know I exist, and that I'm helping them out and all that stuff. When she jumps, she looks at me all the time. Every time she jumps, I try to give her a fist bump, but it didn't work. I didn't know if that was going to be a thing.
Should we try to do that? Do you reckon we should do a fist bump in a future update? I guess we should.
Yeah, why not?
I did try that too. All right. So one of the first things I also do in platformers is leave my character alone, standing still. Of course, to see what they'll do. And she does a little sleep, little sleep animation I liked. And I swear to God, one time I got a jumping jack animation, and I don't know how.
Jacks.
Okay. I was like, how did I do that? I don't know how I cued that.
Yeah,
it was a good one.
Okay, so to circle back with obviously the Mario inspiration again, we kind of alluded to it, but I noticed that there was a lack of tutorials, and that's kind of what Mario was famous for when it first came out. The OG one, like you said, on the NES, I guess, and the Super Nintendo, where you just instinctually know that you just have to move to the right side of the screen and to jump and such, that there's not too much showing you. And it's kind of the same. Well, obviously in Max Mustard, there's a few prompts, and it's nice that the controllers are like shown in the game. So it's really accessible for people who are not really used to the VR controllers. But was this an intentional choice to make the game like as simple, but also as intuitive as possible?
Yeah, definitely. It's insulting when people jam tutorials down your throat. I'm like, just let me play.
Yeah.
And some companies need to have tutorials because their games are more complex, and people don't know what to do. So, yeah, and that also came from testers. If we put testers in there, and if we found we had to tell them what to do, then we had to tweak something. So I think it's a nice balance.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of, like I said, just things, art directions, what's sort of direct teaching you. So the first time you come into a place where you have to jump, I think it says A, right? Like, there's a sign in the game that says A, and if you hadn't already pressed A before, for some reason,
you're gonna know now.
Now in order to progress, you have to press A, so you have to learn it. And that's I love that build, that slow build.
Yeah. I'm just excited for people to try it now.
Yeah, I also think in a lot of games, as soon as you get in, you kind of just want to press all the buttons and kind of see what you're working with and such. Like, it's a very, it's something that normally people do. Like even in Max Mustard, I think in the second level, it showed a little sign where you could double tap A essentially to have like the jetpack kind of feeling off your feet. And I was like, I've been doing that since the start, just floating around.
We know it's like 90% of people figure out the jet boot straight away. Yeah. But if you hadn't, I'm like, okay, second level, you figure it out because we're also telling you. And then at the end of that level, it's got the long life jetpack where you can literally just fly anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And there's a little. No one reads the message; they just figure it out.
The long one that you fly everywhere in it. I got so used to it that when I get to the next level, I died twice because I got so used to just pressing it, and I was like, "Oh wait, I haven't got it anymore." It doesn't carry over, so that makes sense. But caused a couple intentional deaths in there.
Nice. We got
Yeah, you got me. Well,
there's lots of. So the game is difficulty. Greed has a lot to do with the difficulty in this game. Like, if you just take the safe path, it's not too hard. But if you are someone that wants to get more coins, or there's a crate over there with a heap of coins in it, you're gonna have to work for it. So, and we call that greed bait. So there's we bait you in with some greed, and if you want to get it, you have to be good enough. And
I'm a sucker for it. I'm a sucker for it. There's one level in there where, well, early on where you first see like there's fire elements to do with some certain characters, or there's also platforms that disappear once you're on there for a length of time. And I got right towards the last little part of that, and because of greed, I guess, I was trying to get every little coin around it, and the amount of times I just tumbled or hit some fire and such. And it got to a point where I actually was like, okay, I'll do this later because I've died like 10 times. But then because you're in this like VR world, I could see from afar that the ending was right there at the game. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm almost done here. I might as well finish it. So
oh man, that ability to see through most of the level, the optimization team hated us because, but I'm like, it's paid off because people love it. They can see the whole level. And it's like when you're in a beautiful mountainous valley and you can see down the whole valley. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and every valley is different. But geez, it was hard to optimize. Oh my goodness.
Speaking of the challenge, I will say that reminds me a few of my early upgrades were more hearts.
That's good. I'm glad.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted the upgrades to be a lot of 3D platformers. The coins don't do much, so we wanted in this game all your abilities come from the coins. And do you know how you said before that people button mash when they first get a game?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we didn't enable the turning of the camera straight away, because people would button mash and be like, "Oh, what happened?" So that's why that one's an upgrade for that very reason. Yeah. So did you the difficulty? It's too hard for kids, right? But on the surface, it looks like a kids game.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that because, like you said, on the surface, it's a kid's game, but maybe that's just to do with the art style. And I'm like, hey, it's Max Mustard and it's, with these kind of characters. But I noticed that as well. I was like, okay, this it might start off like a kid's game, but is there any accessibility options that can be for kids that you've put in? Or
the coins. The more you die, the more coins you get. And the more coins you get, the easier the game gets because you can buy more hearts and buy upgrades. So it was like that as like an organic upgrade. And look, after more people play it, we'll see if we need to make it a little bit easier again by adding even if we've detected that someone's died 10 times, we'll be like, all right, we'll start to help you a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think that there were I'd probably say anywhere between 3 to 5 points in the game where I got stuck at a point where I was like, all right, take a breath, stop rushing, don't go for the greed, and like let's just get through it. But I appreciated like the entire level of challenge and yeah, I never really felt like it was too easy or too hard there, and I feel like I hit that point in most platformers. Like if I'm playing Crash Bandicoot, there's a few levels where I just get stuck at like certain points where it's like my buddy said I should try Dark Souls because of how much I like platformers where you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again until you master it. But it's a different kind of sadistic love. The platformer, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Richie,
you go.
I was about to say, so what would you say the target audience would be in terms of this game? Like, is this a game that you've made for a specific audience in mind, or?
Yeah. So that's something we figured out like while we were prototyping.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know South Park? They have it's designed by Trey Parker, and he did a talk about who they make it for, and their target market is one friend that they have. And I'm like, that's brilliant. And we did that And every time we hired someone new to the company or engaged or spoke to someone in marketing, they're like, oh, yeah, no, you're meant to have a much broader age. Sorry, Richard. And I'm like, no, it's so hard for the developers to make something to this one person that, like, and we're so busy, we can't reference it constantly with every little thing we do. If there's a broad range, we're like, we just won't do it because now it's a muddy pool of
It's too broad. Yeah.
heaps of people. So by doing it this way, it actually becomes effective. And we made a person on Facebook. Sorry, Facebook. We made a fake account for this person just that. I mean, we had to document it somewhere, and we're like, well, let's document on a Facebook account. So their name's Mike Garcia, and this person is 38 years old. They have 2 kids. They played Mario when they were growing up. They loved it. They work hard, so they don't have much time for games anymore. And so what did this do? So that meant our levels are fairly short compared to other platformers. So they can sit down and play for 10 minutes and actually finish a level and then put it down again if they need to. And but there's lots of levels. So I'm like, this is better than having a few longer levels. What can I tell you about him? He's got 2 kids. He wants to play games with his kids, but most of them are shooting games. So he's like, oh, we need some quality games that aren't shooters. And sorry, I don't want to knock shooters. I love them. There's some really good ones out there. I'm just saying, some people want something different for a change. And also, after a hard day's work, you want to play a game seated sometimes. So this game is perfectly fine playing seated. And with the art style, it's not compatible with the target demographic. However, we're like, what else could we have done? We want the person to feel good. We want one of the emotions we want them to feel is some nostalgia. And so we can't really choose an art style that's anything else but this. So if we want them to feel as good as possible, we kind of have to do it. And it helps make it a little bit ageless as well. My biggest worry before release is people skipping it because they think, it's a kid's game. When they're pretty much a Mike Garcia, and we made it specifically for them.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
That would be my biggest worry.
Yeah, and that's an easy thing to worry about because, like you said, on the surface level, Max Mustard. That's, by the way, great name. I love the name Max. It just rolls off the tongue so nicely. we'll kind of get into the name in a sec, but okay. You're definitely right. It's like on the surface level, this game, someone would say, oh, it probably is something like for kids. You got Lucky's Tale, which is another platformer on Quest, which a lot of people would think, okay, this is just for kids, and even Moss to a certain aspect, but there's a certain charm about platformers, though. I mean, you've seen the Nintendo platformers and such. Like, those are played by all ages and such. So,
yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. We put a question, when we did some research too, we put a question out on Reddit, on the Mario Reddit, and said, is Mario a kid's game? Yes or no? Questionnaire. And we did that internally as well. Internally, it was about 50-50, which is what I was surprised by. And on Reddit, it was like 60-40 to the yeses. But because of the context in which we asked it, I was expecting it to be, a lot higher. But it was really surprising. Most of the people on there were older, and they were like, I don't care, even if it is a kid's game. I love it. And I'm like, phew, thank you. Yeah, in the movie industry, they call it a 4-quadrant movie, and like Titanic and WALL-E, the movie WALL-E, some of the Pixar movies. There's jokes in there that only adults get, but the kids it's easy for them to watch it too. Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. I watched Toy Story the other day, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's so many things in this that I've forgotten that I would have never got if I was a child because
Yeah,
it's so funny, and it's all these different references or just like some throwaway comments that don't mean anything to a kid, but it's
yeah,
perfect for adults. And I think they're the
yeah,
ones that are the most successful. You know, you think of is it Mike Garcia, your fake? Yeah. Think
yeah,
of that, but
yeah,
think of Mike here. Like if he's playing this game to relax, you know, wants to throw on the odd level or two, but maybe his kids are in the room and he wants to get
yeah.
them
He can,
involved. He could
yeah,
beam it
and they
onto
can
the
play it together.
TV.
Yeah,
Yeah, they can play it
yeah,
together. He could beam it onto the TV. It's friendly. He's not just slashing and there's blood and guts and all that stuff out. You know, it's completely different. So it kind of suits
yeah,
that kind of demographic. It kind of suits that target audience. It suits
yeah,
Mike, is what I'm trying to say. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it
That's
suits that.
exactly it.
And I think you're right. Like on the surface level, art style sometimes dictates like, oh yeah, this must be a kid's game. It's a cartoon and all that. But I think maybe you're hoping that potentially the reviews and content like
Yeah,
this and such can get word out there that this is
yeah,
much more than
yeah.
just a
And once enough people play it, and they go, they'll they'll share that
Their
it's
feelings.
up to the consumers to help us out there, I guess. Yeah. The other research we did was, Astrobot on PlayStation.
yeah.
They kind of set the bar quite early on for the quality bar. It is freaking amazing. Hats off to them. They to me they're the top dog in VR platforming, but it's only accessible on PlayStation, unfortunately.
It's not even
And,
accessible now. It's PSVR 1
oh
only.
yeah, you're right.
You can't even play it on the 2. Yeah.
I didn't even. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to ask some of the PlayStation community, like one-on-one, if they'd mind me asking them a couple of questions. And I'm like, how old are they? Which headsets do they own? And do they have kids? And I said, you don't answer the kid question if you don't want to. And I asked like 30 people over 6 months, and over that time, 10 responded. And they were all between the age of like 25 and 33.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is great. And I couldn't so they're all in the average was like 30. And I'm like, oh, this is promising. And they had multiple headsets, and half of them had kids and half of them didn't. And I'm like, wow, that's really amazing. But with VR, I noticed over the past few years, it's shifted from that demographic to a lot younger people playing now. Like there's so many like kids and young teens. Like if you go on a multiplayer game now, it's like kids.
Littered.
It's like a babysitter's club. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed
Especially
that?
if the game is free.
Ah,
yeah.
Gotcha.
You've noticed that in the in obviously games like Population 1. There's like big multiplayer centric shooting games more than anything is the big aspect, and then obviously the social VRs like VR chat and such for sure. But
Gorilla Tag.
Gorilla Tag is those more accessible like cheap game. They're either free to play, or they're just kind of viral. Just because of like how popular they are. But it's normally just multiplayer centric games is what they're looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's what we've noticed for sure. But I think it's funny how you said that. Like you were surprised a little bit with the age range of that. Is to me, the age range. Like I'm 29, so I'm kind of like in that kind of demographic. And for a person like in my age range, is that I grew up with Mario. I grew up with Sonic. I grew up with these Crash Bandicoots and platformers. So when I was just talking to Samson before you came on this podcast, and I was saying, I'm in such a platformers space right now. This game's actually come into my life at the perfect time because I've been playing I've been playing Astro's Playroom, which is the PS5 demo game, and it's just so good. And then
it's amazing.
I just picked up Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart to play on the PS5, and I'm not a child. This would probably deemed as a children's game on the surface level, but that game's on my docket for ages because I know that's going to be a fun. It's going to be like a calming nostalgia trip back to the good old days, and just me just like playing some nice platforming and such. And when I put Max Mustard on this morning, just to prepare for this podcast, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm in the mood for right now over these last week or two, and it scratches that itch. And like you said, there's not many platformers on the Quest. I think I wrote down, we got Lucky's Tale, Ven VR, Moss Book 1 and 2, Dementor a little bit, and then Trover Saves the Universe potentially. Like, these are kind of loose platformers, but
yeah,
that's it. That's 5 right there. That's on the Quest, right? There's not that many. So I think target market audience, for the age range alone, I think just the fact that there's not many of these can scratch that itch that a lot of people have been looking for.
And even so, Moss is brilliant, isn't it? But great, I wouldn't even call them. To me, they feel like totally different games. So one's a puzzle platformer, and one's an action platformer. And I just the difference between puzzle and action is so different. Yeah. It's like a different feeling. Yeah.
It's a different game.
Well, Richie, what was the biggest challenge in the making of Max Mustard?
Probably the scrappenings. There was 3 scrappenings during the development, and you can probably guess what they are by the name, but it was when we looked at our current levels and we scrapped the worst of them. And so we probably went through over 100 concepts for levels, and then they'd make it. There's like 6 phases of a level's development, and if they make it to phase 2, which is a very short prototype, then great. And if they're good enough, they get selected for phase 3, and if they're good enough, they get selected for the next phases, I guess. But to help with that, we would, in addition to there being a filter at each phase, we'd have to then scrap some levels. And sometimes levels would get to phase 4, which is fully playable. It just hadn't been given its final art pass. And we're like, this isn't as good as the rest of the game. It has to go. And so it sucks. And there'd often be debates in the game, because sometimes we'd scrap some people's favorite levels. Yeah. But it just wasn't enough people's favorite level. And I think every level now has a shot at being someone's favorite level, like a different people's favorite level, depending on what appeals to them. Like kids that have played it love the level where you go down a waterfall. And that's the one where you that's the one where you vacuum all the fruit. So it's easy for kids to do the vacuuming, but then when they do go down the waterfall, it's a nice surprise for the kids. And so they're like, Dad, can you get me back to the waterfall? It's pretty funny.
I think my favorite was the I don't want to give away too much, but the beatbox.
That's why there's only one level in the game that has a sequel, and that's the beatbox. Man, there's so much to talk about with the beatbox levels.
I know. It's like how you don't even want to get into spoilers though, right? So it's like you're just treading on eggshells. You're like, but yeah, for sure. But do you have anything to say? Go on.
Yeah, we've gone on a tangent. I forget what we were talking about. I got so excited.
The challenge,
the level design, and man, I got distracted. Sorry.
That's okay. You're talking about
that's right. The biggest, the scrappenings. Yeah. So we were scrapping levels, and someone was like, "Why don't you just keep them in, and then you can have a longer game?" And I'm like, "Well, we could easily make this a 20 or 30 hour game, but it won't be a better game." And so we heard a rumor, a statistic about how many people buy games and then not finish them. And I'm like, that's just what? And so we don't want to contribute to that. And so we're like, well, we're just going to scrap the worst bits consistently. And if someone's not adding significant value to the game, then it's going to be removed. So
this was the first game I finished in 2024.
Oh my goodness.
I do play a lot of games that that are, you know, live servicey, like Breachers, Pop One, and I've been taking on Grid Legends, which to be fair is like a 40 to 50 hour game.
Oh, wow.
Like that's just like a crazy racing game.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there are a lot of games where I put a lot of time into, like Assassin's Creed. I probably put 9 or 10 hours in, and it just like fell off. I'll go back eventually, but
yeah,
I appreciate. I love like I think this one probably, and there I do have more to do, obviously, but I was in like the 5 to 6 hour mark, I think, and that felt good.
That's perfect. That's the sweet spot for us. Some people they just die so much they'll take days to finish the game. And then speedrunners are going to do it a lot quicker. But I'm like, I don't mind that, because if you look at Mario, they can speedrun 20-hour Mario games in a couple of hours. And like, surely they're not going to get bad reviews because of that.
No, that's just more of a fun challenge. And I just want to quickly say something that on our script we have a bunch of questions, and Samson put what is going to make me want to complete this game, brackets, I haven't finished a single VR platformer to completion. This was before you got into Max Mustard. I guess we don't need to ask that question because you've already done it. You've already completed it.
Yeah. Well,
it's true.
The answer is because you finish a level and then you're like, I want to see the next one now. That's the answer. And
a big thing for me too.
It was purposeful. Yeah.
A big thing for me was the bosses. I was like, oh, I'm curious what this next boss is. So then I was like, that really inspired me, because then you have to do all the levels to get, you know, in that act to get to the boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. All the bosses are anthropods. So all the animal bosses. Well, actually,
yeah.
So, you know, anthropods have exoskeletons like crabs and insects. Yeah. And so we have a crab and we have a bee and, we have an octopus, and they're not anthropods, but smart octopuses put shells on their bodies to protect themselves. And so it's kind of like they're so smart, they get an exoskeleton when they want one. Yeah.
That's
how we just. Yeah, how's that? Yeah, have you seen the videos that octopus pick up shells and protect themselves?
I have not.
I've seen. No, I saw Mark, some big YouTuber guy. I forget. He was like a scientist. Yeah, he did an octopus went through challenge. A whole challenge. It's pretty crazy how quickly they decipher a puzzle. They're basically master platformers.
Yeah. That are pretty, so that's one of the bosses too. The beatbox. I might as well talk about it a little bit.
Go for it.
So beatbox, it's a level that it's a rhythm-based level. So there's red boxes and there's blue boxes, and every 8 count of music, one of the colors turn on and the other color turns off, and so you end up having to do count in your head. Yeah. So you know when to make your jump, right? And we're not the first to have done that. That's been done in Mario games. It's been done in Sackboy, other non-platforming games, and it feels great. It's a solid level. And here's where it gets a little bit interesting. There was a TED talk like 10 years ago, something, by a guy named Tom Thumb, who was like the world's best beatboxer. And it's still, I think, the 3rd most watched TED talk in history. Wow. And it's him beatboxing. And we're like, oh my goodness, he lives down the road from us. What's the chances of us getting him to do the music? And so we called up his agent, and we negotiated a deal. And so he did the beatboxing in that level. And it's real beatboxing.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like it's possible. Like, we went to his studio recently and he did a live performance, which we're going to release one day. And it's like he's standing next to a speaker, but he's the instrument. And I'm like, what the hell? This is just, yeah. And I'm glad that you like that level. Someone from Meta played that level, right? And before he played the level, he said, "Hey guys, I've just started playing. This is," and we cried a little bit. He said, "This is the best VR game I've ever played." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" We had a little tear, and then he kept playing, and he got to the big blocks level, and he came back and said, "I'm updating my review. This is the best game I've ever played." And I'm like, "What?" I was smiling all day.
Some good praise.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I think the marketing team are going to use that in the press release when it goes live. I'm like, yeah, that's a good one.
I think because obviously this is your first proper game, right? Like, because obviously Richie's Plank experience was an experience. I think the great thing about this is that after this game has been released, you'll have a lot of like market data of what levels are people's favorites, and then maybe in the future you could probably like double down on those kind of levels, or those kind of mechanics and such potentially, because you'll have that market data from what people are loving across the community and such.
Yeah, we've started discussions about what we're going to do next, and I won't share that yet.
So ride something. And something where you're maybe moving, like there is levels in Crash Bandicoot where he was running towards the camera, right? Which in VR might get weird. So I don't know how that can be done.
We had that and scrapped it because it was too weird. It was too uncomfortable. Yeah. Great idea though.
I do like. Yeah. The only other thing was ride something like in Crash Bandicoot when you get in the hog or the polar bear. That was the only other like platformy thing I could think of.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I also do love the level that messes with gravity.
But, the low gravity level? Yeah. That was so close to getting scrapped. Oh my goodness. Because it was a whole unique art world for one level.
Right.
And I'm like, no, we need that level because by the time they get to World 3, the player's going to start to think, I've seen all the different art now. There's nothing else. They're just, that we have all the different. I've seen all the environments.
Yeah.
But then when they would need to be like, there's another one. Yeah.
I can picture the. I don't know if you remember. Back in the SNES days, I want to say, I'm a little bit too young for that, but they came out with Mario Lost Levels, with all the levels that they never put out. I'm picturing Stage 4 levels from Toast Interactive to be released as a Lost Levels pack one potential day.
Yeah,
with all these levels that you scrapped.
The underwater levels too. Everybody hates a good underwater level.
I'm not going to talk about what's next because we don't want people to be. I don't want to spoil anything. Yeah,
I get it.
For sure.
I get it.
Absolutely.
What are you most proud of with Max Mustard?
That every level is unique. The feeling of when you finish a level, you want to play the next one, and people want to finish the game. That's what I'm most proud of, because as I said, it's a big problem in games that players' time's often not respected enough. And when I hear that we might have hit that bar for a lot of people that they want to finish the game, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Yeah, so. That's what I feel very proud of that. It was very hard to do. It costed a lot, but I'm like, this isn't worth doing unless we do it like that. So, that's what I'm most proud of.
I just want to give a shout out to the sound design. I think the sounds in the game are very satisfying. When we spoke about like coins and I definitely like the plunger sound when you're shooting the plungers and such. But I just want to say that I very much noticed that the countdown in the mini game sounds very familiar if you played Mario Kart games before. The 3, 2, 1.
Yeah,
That sounds like I was
that's
ready to
interesting.
go in Mario Kart.
That's funny. That is funny.
Sounds very funny.
Yeah,
But yeah, the
no, they
sound
did a really good job.
Is that like a specific team, or is that like in Toast, or was that external?
Yeah, so sound is the only thing we outsourced, but they did so much work in the end. It doesn't feel like they were an outsourcer. The people that we outsourced to, they just feel like they're team members. But no, that's by a company called Blip Sounds. And they did the sound effects for Tetris on your mobile phones. Yeah, Ryan and Josh, shout out to you guys. They nailed,
fantastic. Very satisfying. Very, very satisfying. I just want to, Samson, I want to read a question that you actually put on the script here. What do the red coins do?
So the red coins are like regular coins, but they're temporary.
Okay. Oh, I see.
They don't last long, so you have to rush. Because
they disappear, right? They disappear.
Yeah, so. And they're actually currently worth 5 gold coins, so they're worth more as well.
That's what I thought. I figured that they would be worth it.
There's debate. There's debate about whether we should bring that down to 3 or 1, but I think we don't have time to change that now, even if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's fair.
I felt like I never felt like I needed to grind for more coins, but I also didn't feel like I was ever like, swimming in money, so to say.
Yeah, cool.
I felt like good balance.
Yeah, the coins. I had to debate a lot about whether we're having these upgrades in the game, and I'm like, no, because this was the only thing that makes us different from like even Mario 3D platforming. Like we need, so many platformers don't upgrade your character, and the level design team's like, but Richard, we can't control her jump distance when we design our levels because we don't know how far she can jump or how far we can run. And I'm like, if she gets overpowered, that just makes the player feel even better. And so, and also in Mario games, they never have jumps that max out the distance. So we don't need to max out the distance either. And so I think it's worth it, the upgrades. And what I'm most excited about, and speedrunners get involved, choosing what upgrades to buy becomes a whole new meta of difficult. Like they have to decide very carefully which coin they collect in order to get the upgrade that when they need it, like the faster shoes, or are they going to get the piggy bank that you bought, Sam, to get more coins, which means they can take less time to go through the levels. Anyway, I'm excited for them to get a hold of that mechanic. Yeah,
absolutely. I do like that feature where you can upgrade it. Really, like it's not it's not choose your own adventure, but you can kind of like your character is decided by you. So no 2 characters would be the same for certain levels per se, And you could probably, it might be add some maybe replayability to the game a little bit. Like if you were in the future to add like more potential upgrades potentially, then that would entice people to come back and go, okay, let me try and play the game again with this. Maybe you can do some wacky upgrades that they could get just to completely break the game, but it's like, let me just try it with this wacky upgrade instead and see how these levels feel. There's a lot of potential that you could do.
Challenge mode, no upgrades.
Ooh,
I like it.
Yeah. I like it.
I like it. Richie, let's talk a bit about the mascot, Max Mustard. Right. First of all, what was the intention behind Max itself? Like, were you always just planning to have that one kind of lovable character? Was it ever going to be a human or a potential like animal or anything like that? Like, how did Max come to fruition?
So many platformers are little animals, and we're just like, no, we just don't want to do another animal. And the human, we can't do a robot. because Astrobot is just such a good game. We get compared to it. We know we will be. As I said, it's not Astrobot. So don't buy it expecting it. But we can't do a robot. And so a humanoid character, they're like knee high, so they're not human dimensions. And then, so my wife created the concept of the game with me, and we have 2 girls. And in Australia, there's a TV show called Bluey, which is made down the street from us as well, and it's set in our hometown. Yeah,
wow.
And
it is very popular here in the States.
Oh, it is. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So Bluey, you can watch a few episodes and not realize that the 2 kids in Bluey are female, because they're not stereotypical females. They just go out and have a good time and want to play. And when my wife isn't a big game, she doesn't play lots of games. So when she was doing the research, she's like, Rich, why is every single game that has a female in it the same stereotype? They're either weak and vulnerable, or they're sexified with big boobs. And I'm like, yeah, that's not good. And so we're like, let's do a female, but we don't make any kind of big deal about it. It's like we never talk about her being a female. It's just like, it's normal, whatever. Like,
just happened,
and also when we tested multiple characters, right, the one with the long hair with the physics animation trailing just feels the best. So we're like, well, we'd be crazy not to do that. So
you mean Buzzcut Kyle Ketchup wasn't a hit?
No, and so we're just going to do with what feels better when you play the game. So that designed the character. We're trying to name the character. We liked the bright yellow jumpsuit for readability when playing the game. Someone suggested we name them Mustard, and I'm like, ooh, mustard's a very brandable word. It's not overused. And the way that brains work on net memorability is we associate, the little neurons associate. And we're like, oh, because that word isn't overused, but it is also a word that people are very familiar with, it should be easier to learn than making up a name from scratch. Or it's got the mnemonic there with the color. Even though it's a bit brighter than the proper colored mustard, it helps with memorability, and it's unusual, which ticks the box. And also, mustard is like a flavor that's strong in small quantities, especially if you have the English mustard.
Oh, the English mustard's brutal. It's kind of like wasabi,
it's like,
when you're having that with sushi, you know.
It's as strong as wasabi. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're like, let's just call it mustard. Great, lock it in. So we get onto the trademarking. Oh no, there's a company that sells shoes that has mustard, and then you won't be able to sell or have any merchandise. I'm like, oh, great. Well, let's just do it this. And then they say, no, that's something else. And then I'm like, oh my goodness. It took a long time for us to figure out what to do to the word, to add something to it. And we're like, let's just do Max. And so that's where the name came from.
I love it. Max Mustard does sound like a hero kind of name, you know, in some sense.
Yeah.
Like when I hear Max Mustard, I don't know, because it sounds so much of a strong kind of name. It just feels like a hero's name. So I think you did a great job.
I want to go on an adventure. Yeah, it's very adventurous.
Thank you.
Name.
It got lots of critique, and it will still get critique. But I'm like, if it's not, I'm like, then we didn't do something odd enough. So
for sure.
And when Richie's Plank came out, right? We had someone, and this was only on Steam in 2016. Someone said on Reddit, on our like launch post, worst name for a game ever, and I'm like, So we made.
Thanks.
No, they said this wins the award for worst name of a game ever. But people don't think that anymore because they think, oh, that's just the brand. That's a solid brand for a VR title. But it of course it was odd, and we made ourselves an award and put it on the Steam page.
I love it. That is amazing.
Yeah, so just gotta kind of roll with it. Yeah.
Speaking of this, is this a Quest exclusive?
No, so it'll be on PlayStation VR 2 by mid-year, Q2 sometime. And PC should be then as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the main reason it's not all at the same time is time. Like we need a bit more time to tweak
all that.
The PlayStation controls, the haptics. It's got the pressure-sensitive triggers, and we don't want to rush it. It needs to be amazing on PlayStation as well.
I agree.
Especially
I was just to dial back a second on Max Mustard. There's one thing I just wanted to quickly ask is you obviously played Mario Odyssey recently or throughout this testing and such. One of the great things about Mario Odyssey is the first time that you can actually change Mario's costume and such. Did you ever think of having that option in this game as well? Yeah,
definitely. We thought about it. It didn't make the cut. Yeah,
fair enough.
We were nearly at the stage of right. Do our coins spend money on cosmetic upgrades, or do our coins spend money on physical upgrades like abilities? And we're like, it's got to be the abilities. Like what we might do in the future is some cosmetic upgrades. But we had to do one of the scrappenings included cosmetic upgrades for now. Yeah,
to make choices.
Yeah, it's tough.
You can't do it all on your first go out. Right? There's only so much that one can do. Fair enough. And then obviously I know you said you can't really talk about too much of like what's coming, but when you go into the game, I noticed straight away on the left you have a sign that says upcoming features. One is obviously a resolution update. Is can you speak about that? Like is that to do with the Quest 3 in particular, and do you have a timeline for it at all?
Yeah, so that's to do with Quest 2 and 3. We, due to the number of polygons we're pumping through in this game, like so you can see the whole level, we are absolutely maxing out the Quest 2. And at a decent resolution, we're nearly maxing out a Quest 3. So there's still more we want to do for performance in order to get the stable frame rate. And we've done that now. It's been testing right now. It won't be done in time for release. So we just thought, hey, let's let them know that
it's coming.
We're improving the resolution. It might not be done in the first patch after release, but it will be done like in the first month of release. And no one testers have never said anything about the resolution, so people probably won't even notice. And there was concern that if we put it there, people might go, oh, let's look at the resolution instead of just not even noticing in the first place. But we're like, some people out there are really particular with resolution. The majority of people aren't going to care or think about it, but that message is there for those that are particular about it, and it's important to them. And we're like, hey, we gotcha. This is we're going to boost this in a sec.
Yeah, and just to be clear there, you saying that resolution is going to apply to Quest 2 as well as 3, right?
Yep.
Is what you're looking
for?
Yeah,
sure.
Because there's a lot of games, obviously, I think the confusion is that, because since the Quest 3's been out, there's been a lot of games that have been like, this is the resolution pack for Quest 3. Arizona Sunshine, like a couple of weeks ago or so, just came out with their resolution pack for Quest 3 and such, and it's very focused on that. So I just wanted to, be clear if it was just to do with...
Yeah. No, it'll be on both. But we're also, I think we're adding a setting to boost Quest 3 even further. And I don't know. They're going to be mad at me, but I'm going to ask you the question. Because it's not just, we're at the point where it's not just managing resolution, we're managing battery life. And I'm like, do do we choose the high resolution or do we choose something that has a better battery life balance?
Battery life.
And I'm like, is it between like 0 and 10? How important would it be to add an option to change the resolution in the game settings?
That's a good question.
Do you want long battery or do you want highest resolution possible?
So what I do to save battery personally is I jack my brightness all the way down. I play normally when I hop in VR, I turn it to absolute 0 in my Quest. And then when I go to start the game, I turn it to like 15 to 25% after my eyes have adjusted. And that seems like bright enough for me. Resolution, the only game I've ever messed with resolution or really thought about it is with Grid Legends, which is like the racing game that has a lot. Like the resolution change really made a big difference for the Quest 3. Whereas I have got a lot of Bobo batteries. So I'm always going to trade battery life and just change those things constantly. But that's like all that said, having just played it, the resolution was never really on my mind. I was too busy having fun.
Yeah.
That said, I know there are people that like care more about that.
Yep.
But
okay. That's good to know. Thanks.
I'm curious for the listeners and watchers of the YouTube version of this podcast. Definitely let us know in the comments and on the Discord to see, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a better battery life at not a hit of resolution? That sounds so harsh, but like, not the best that it could be, or would you prefer the resolution to be amazing to take a hit off that battery life? And I think, Richie, just to speak for myself here, as the listeners know, I do not play VR for longer than an hour and a half at a time. Like that would, even then, that's a big one. I'm in there for like 45 minutes and such. And I'm actually perfect. You talk about this Mike guy who has kids. I don't have kids and such, but I'm that type of person who kind of just wants to go in, play like 20 minutes, a couple levels or so, and then hop back out. And then maybe later on I'll get into it.
Yeah.
So as a person with that mind, for me, I wouldn't care too much about the battery life getting hit. I definitely, if that was a setting in Max Mustard, I would turn that on immediately. I think it becomes a question if it's more like, does it take a hit of the performance? Okay, then I'd probably edge towards more for performance, especially with a platformer and such. I'd want it to be a bit more smoother than having less frame rate and better graphics. Like even when I'm playing on the PlayStation 5, I definitely favor performance over resolution. But when it comes to battery life, because I don't go into VR for too long at a time, I would definitely toggle that on if it was an option to have better resolution for sure.
Good to know. Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think definitely if there is a way to have an option, like I guess a couple of games have got, so it's not common in VR yet, but I'm sure, as we get more and more into Quest 3's life and such, it will start to become something in there. Yeah. But I would say having the option is always a good thing.
Yeah, nice to know. It could even be a feature that Meta add one day. Like your mobile phones have low power mode, and it's pretty easy, and it can include dimming and lower res.
For sure. I mean, because
that would be cool. Yeah.
The Quest has low battery mode, but that's just to turn off, like reduce the brightness and such like that. Like it doesn't really affect any of the games per se. Gotcha. So it's very minimal. But I'm curious of what the people listening and watching this think too, because I think it does vary on what type of VR player you are. And also what kind of strap that you're using. I think if you talk about the person who is in VR quite a lot but doesn't have the luxury of, say, Samson with a bunch of batteries lying around, then probably battery life. I think it really depends. So having the option for them to toggle is definitely going to be helpful.
Yeah,
for sure. It's nice on the PlayStation. You don't have to think about that.
I know.
No, you don't. On the PSVR 2.
But then you come to PC and everybody's got a different PC. So
Yeah, it's not easy. The other thing I was going to mention also on the upcoming features, you also have "Don't pull the lever" on there as well. What can you speak to that at all, or not?
It is. It's something we're going to add to the van. You know, your level hub.
Yeah.
And it might be a while before that's out because we have a version working now, and it's really good. But I'm like, oh, this could. If we just do this other thing that we want to do to it could be something that people might buy the game just for that. And so we're like, let's maybe just save it. Save it. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and to be honest, the last question I kind of want to ask you, Richie, and this is more just in a broad spectrum here, is like we've kind of alluded to different platformers and such throughout this whole episode here, but what do you think makes platformers so special in VR, like in particular?
Yeah, so 3D platformers are harder than 2D platformers, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the depth perception. You now have to judge your position in 3D, and it's
speaking of that, the circle underneath the character is chef's kiss.
Oh,
go on.
That makes me feel so good.
I agree. I totally agree, because it helps you understand where your player is and how they're going to jump and such. And I think it's a fantastic addition.
Noticed that circle in Crash Bandicoot, and we had just a shadow, Crash Bandicoot 4, and we're like, it's still getting critique about depth perception. I'm like, damn, all right. And that was one of the 3 extra things we did. Anyway, so 2D to 3D, you lose. Like when people played the first 3D platformer that most people played when they were younger is the Mario
64.
3D Mario 64. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people playing that for the first time had trouble with the depth. I remember it was like, whoa, this is way harder jumping on a Goomba than it is in 2D. And part of that is because they're missing the depth. In VR, you get the depth. And so, to me, an advantage of VR platforming for a 3D game over non-VR is the depth. That's the biggest one. And also the turning the head, which we talked about before. You can just, if you want to move the camera, if you want to turn the camera, you just turn your head. If you want to look over there, you don't have to move learn about a right thumbstick. Even grandma, they just turn their head if they want to look over there. And so those 2 things alone are what makes 3D platformers better in VR. Yeah. But there's a but. When designing levels for this game, if we didn't consider the player's depth perception very carefully, and the level designers were prone to not consider it, they wanted to make wider, more exploration. When we put through testers, consistently coming back, hey, I can't judge my jumps. I want to move the camera. And I'm like, to the level designers, guys, people want to move the camera still. We need to make our levels better. Like we're not, so we had to make them tighter, more, and really consider the player's viewpoint. It was consistent. And now we rarely get that critique. And when we do, it's usually from people who it's the first time they've played a 3D platformer, which is all a skill that you have to just figure out. And we're like, okay, we've got a good balance now. But that was something that really had to be considered. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I've not played as much as Samson's obviously finished it, but I never once thought, I need too much camera control or snap turning or anything. I felt very comfortable because I felt like it was moving how I'd want it to move anyway. And obviously there's the odd times that I do need to look left or right because there might be some box that I missed and I need to go down there. Nice. I could obviously move my head and such. So No, I think you've done a great job there. Honestly, I think it's really well
That
done.
was-
And you can tell that there's all these little stuff that you've thought about, and that's why it takes 4 years to make such game. It's because you have all of these little bits that you probably don't think about at the start of development, but as you're playing the game, you realize more and more nuances that you have to address.
Yeah, it's yeah. Thank you. Yeah, some levels had to be remade multiple times.
Yeah,
just to accommodate that. And yeah, it was it seems now that you play it, it's like, oh, this seems so simple. Like
it does.
how would this have been hard to get right? But man, multiple iterations. That's how. Yeah.
The best things do if it feels like seamless and it's really simple and such, that most likely means that you spent a lot of time in the background trying to get it to that aspect, so people don't notice or anything like that, so no, I think the team's done a fantastic job on this game.
And
Yeah,
speaking
thanks.
of the team that did a fantastic job, not to spoil anything, but the end of the credits, you have a big thank you to all of the partners. And so thank you to all the partners for everybody on the team too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I like that touch. It felt like the non-crunch, like it just felt like a good vibe, a good thing to push. I like it.
Yeah, because when something's hard, you need like people. It's
Support.
hard on relationships as well. It's like yeah.
For sure. So just before we round out this podcast, Richie, I just want to ask. Obviously, your role at Toast is the creative director. For people who don't really know what that role does, like what is your role for people who are just interested in just a broader range of like roles in the industry and such? Like, what does a creative director do?
So mine's a little bit different because I'm also the owner of the business, but I'm not the boss. It's weird. There's like multiple people above me. But the creative director though is they make sure they create quality product, and they're responsible to work with the other leads in the games, like the level design lead and the art lead, and they even work with the dev team to make sure the game is great and ticks what the design document's intention is.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, they're also responsible to call weaknesses out when in a friendly way. Keep the team inspired to do well and not quit because you've been a bit of a dick to someone for too long, or like you don't want good people to leave. So you have to make sure the team, and it's working with the producer. So that's also the producer's job. And yeah, polish. So one of my personal pet projects in the game was adding little bits of polish here and there. And so here's an example. When you jump on an enemy's head, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the obvious things: sound, animation, VFX, and haptics. They're all like, yeah, just do that, right? And it'll feel good, and it does feel good. But I'm like, no, we need to do more than that. So there's a 200 milliseconds or 150 milliseconds of the enemy flashing white at the moment of impact. And it's like, oh yeah, that feels better. And then if you use the spin attack, there's now 250 milliseconds of super slow motion animation. Not just a freeze, super slow-mo, and for a quarter of a second. And so, in Street Fighter, when you sometimes on the arcade, you do the finishing move, you hit, and it goes, whoa. Yeah, and it has, I don't remember if it's a freeze frame or a very slow motion. It essentially feels like a freeze frame, but it's actually super slow-mo. And then, what else would do? This was from the guy, I forget his name. That's really bad. He designed Super Smash Brothers, and he did a YouTube talk about some of these things. And another one of them is at impact, you don't screen shake, you shake the enemy. So when you do the impact, it shakes for like 200 milliseconds. And also Max's kick. So when the spin kick happens, that will go slow motion as well. So combining that with the base stuff like the sound and VFX and haptics, it's like, oh, now that feels really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it really adds to the feel and immersiveness of you playing with the character, right? It really adds to that immersiveness nature.
Yeah, you're really like a wider lens on it, right? Like you're seeing all these different pieces put together, and you're like, oh, this could use a little tweak there.
Yeah.
And now it's
and wall jumping. So I spent a lot of time trying to get the wall jumping to feel good, because it's easy to code it, but it's really hard to code it so it feels good, and it to make the player feel like
they're in control.
What they want is actually happening. Yeah.
Obviously, this is the first game that you've done. Like, did you going into this? Did you realize that maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Like, obviously you had challenges, and I'm sure there's a lot that you've learned from these 4 years or so of doing a game. But after you look back on the full development cycle, like, was it far from what you had imagined game development to be like for an actual full start to finish of an actual proper game, or was it still very similar to what you had imagined?
It's similar to what I imagined. It's hard. Things take longer than you expect, and just adding more people to the team, it's not a linear increase in productivity, because there's now multiple people that have to be involved. It's like software development, which was my background. To go from one person, if you want to double productivity, you don't get it by hiring 2 people. You have to hire like 3 people in order to get the productivity of 2 people, because now they have to document things more, they have to plan things more, and it's probably not even 3 people that you need to hire in order to double productivity on a project. You need probably more, just because of all the extra things. You have to layers, you now have to code to not the way you want to do it. You have to now code in a way that's compatible with these guidelines that other people have coded with. And that just takes longer to do.
Yeah, it's not just you who you got to account for. Everyone's got to be able to read and understand this code, essentially. So, yeah, fair enough. Well,
so, Dan, we're wrapping up here soon. Yeah, I got my one sort of left field question here because we just had a Walkabout Course release here, and they also just announced their next IP course, which will be Wallace and Gromit coming out this summer.
Ooh, nice.
But I noticed that there isn't a VR IP Walkabout Course yet, and I think Max Mustard and Walkabout, they might make a pretty good team.
Let's get an intro going, and we can I think
there's some Aussies. There's some Aussies out there.
Oh, in Walkabout.
Yeah.
Edward.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Edward's in Australia for sure.
Cool.
I think he's lead art director. I'm pretty sure, but I could be slightly wrong on that. But
wow, it's weird in Queensland where we're from. Depending on the time of year, it can be like 20% of the top selling VR games are made there.
That's wild. That's so wild, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so weird. Yeah.
It's a tech hub.
Yeah. Or a VR thing. A VR hub, yeah.
VR hub of some sorts. For sure. Richie, thank you so much for coming on the show. I speak to this out of heart and out of truth, and Samson, I'm pretty sure you'll say the same, that I do think this is a really fantastic game, and I do think everyone should definitely pick this up. It's so suited for a lot of different type of play styles, and I know from our Discord where we have a bunch of members on there, when I posted, we're going to bring Richie on because he's going to talk about Max Mustard, a lot of people were hyped because they were very excited for this game, and they were waiting for this game to come out, and they even corrected me that. Because I thought it was going to come out on podcast release, but they corrected me. It was like, no, Dan, it's on the 21st and such. And I was like, oh, okay. So they're following it even more than I was following it. So you definitely have a lot of fans in the LTO community. And kudos to the Toast Interactive team, because honestly, you guys have made a fantastic game for 2024.
Yeah. Shout out to the LTO Discord for that. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Perfect. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for watching, of course. Let us know in the comments if there's any other further questions that you wanted to ask Richie, but obviously we didn't have time for today as such. But thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we will see you next Thursday. That's it.